कितने पैसे चाहिए?
पैसा नहीं इज्जत। मोहल्ले के चिरकुट लौंडे हरा रहे मैं फैंटेसी स्पोर्ट्स में। आप एक्सपर्ट हो, सिखाओ।
सिखाऊंगा तो जाने दोगे?
फैंटेसी स्पोर्ट्स का
असली अखाड़ा।
इस गेम में वित्तीय जोखिम के तत्व हैं और इसकी लत लग सकती है। कृपया जिम्मेदारी से और अपने जोखिम पर खेलें।
Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Outside View presented by Fantasy Akhada. So, after the T20I series that's now done and dusted, our focus shifts towards the 50 over format. India, of course, dominated the proceedings in the T20I series against Sri Lanka. They won their 2-1, and now they would want to continue their domination in the ODI series as well. While on the other hand, Sri Lanka would want to give a tough fight, and we saw that giving that they gave a tough fight in the final T20I and they received a consolation win there. So India are going to play the ODI format of the game after the World Cup for the first time. There's a lot of changes in the squad. We wouldn't see Mithali Raj anymore in the 50 over format. Julian Goswami also is not a part of the series. So plenty of questions around the changed Indian side. But to put everything into perspective for us, I have alongside me our experts, Thirushkamini and Annesha Ghosh. Welcome both of you and good morning.
Hello, good morning.
So let me first give you the toss update. So Sri Lanka have won the toss and they've elected to bat first. So let's just start the talks with Sri Lanka itself. When we talk about Sri Lanka's batting unit, of course, the first person that comes to our mind is their skipper, Chamari Attapattu. So of course, we'll get to the squad soon. We'll get to know who's been a part of this playing 11 for today's match. But until then, coming to you, Annesha, first, we see that Chamari Attapattu has been leading the side from the front. Whenever Sri Lanka has dominated the proceedings, they've won the games. We've seen her score games. So it pretty much depends on how Chamari Attapattu conducts herself once again in this game. That's going to probably decide the fortunes of today's game.
100%, and with her having scored that 80-run unbeaten knock in the final T20I, that must have given her and the team a lot of confidence by way of the consolatory win, as well as her being able to take her team over the line, given it wasn't the easiest of tracks to bat on in Dambola. But obviously, the bandwagon now moves to a different city and the format changes. And this being an ICC Women's ODI Championship series, the pressure on both teams is going to be even more, which is why Chamari Attapattu needs to be right there, front and center, taking the onus on herself, taking the responsibility as she has been historically doing since for the longest time, especially since the retirement of Shashikala Sirivardhane, the former captain, and with her having also scored that 100 the century in the final ODI against Pakistan, which helped them avert a clean sweep in the 50 over leg of that Pakistan tour. I think she comes into this ODI series in great form, and it will be up to the Indian bowlers to make sure they do not let Chamari Attapattu go off the hook early, as she did in the T20I last T20I against India, because if you give her opportunities in the form of drop chances, Chamari Attapattu is going to make you, is going to punish you. So that's something the Indian side needs to be wary of. And as far as her dictating terms, depending on how the pitch pans out, but irrespective, should she get some errors affected on the part of the Indian players early on, I think there is a good opportunity for Chamari Attapattu to make sure that she gets those ICC Women's Championship points early on for her side, because here is a team facing a side that faced league stage elimination in the 2022 ODI World Cup, and Sri Lanka themselves could not be part of that World Cup because of the Omicron variant that led to the cancellation of the 50 over World Cup qualifiers. So lots for Chamari Attapattu and Sri Lanka to prove in this game.
Definitely. And as you rightly said that there would be a lot of eyes on Chamari Attapattu. But speaking of how Sri Lanka would approach today's game, Thirush, you've been in those shoes, you've played games. So what's it like to be in, what's the team environment out there? Because they lost the ODI series against Pakistan. They won the final ODI, and yet again we saw there that skipper was at drop. But approaching a new series, a new start, because as Annesha mentioned that the new championship cycle is very important. Every game matters there, every point matters there, and it's home conditions. So what's the process that the thinking tank probably goes through, or the management, the coaches that goes through that you need to approach this series with a new mindset, a fresh mindset, and do not take the baggage of the past? What could be the approach of Sri Lanka heading into this first ODI?
They would be very excited about the tournament simply because it's the start of the new ICC championship point, like rightly mentioned by Annesha. So the lot goes into the saying, and certainly they are going to carry the confidence that they brought from the last T20, irrespective of what has happened in the earlier series against Pakistan. But heading into the tournament, they hold the momentum within them, so which will help them to carry it forward in the ODI. Tournament that they're going ahead with India. And luckily, they have won the toss and got into bat. And especially with a format like a ODI format, India are definitely a much more stronger side when it compares to a T20, because T20 is based on how a particular plays on a particular day. But ODI format is a longer format which involves a lot of contribution, just not from Chamari Atupattu, because in the T20 we did see just a contribution from one player being to bring the difference or able to win a game. But in a 50 over, you really need a lot of contribution from just not one player but two other players to post a decent target on board. But no doubt their fielding and bowling has been exceptional. All credits to them. In fact, if they're able to post a decent total with too few players chipping in, we did notice Nilaksh Disalva last game giving in a good 30, a good partnership with Chamari Atapattu. So maybe a few other players chipping in will help them post a decent score and could be a big threat to India, especially with Sri Lanka batting first. So it all depends on Harmanpreet Kaur trying to restrict Sri Lanka as less as possible, because you do not want to chase a lot of runs, especially in the home condition. And again, with a team of Sri Lanka, which is considered relatively coming from a good bowling unit.
The bowling unit has been challenging, and of course, as you said, that would be something going on in the minds of Harmanpreet Kaur and the management as well, planning against their spinners who've been in a great form there. But of course, as you said, that you need support there in a format like that of ODI cricket. You can't depend on one player. You need support there. Sri Lanka's batting unit has been struggling. They haven't been able to provide that sort of stability to the side that probably you need in times of difficulties, like someone to support there to anchor the innings alongside the skipper or someone who's in form. But Harshita Madhvi has shown a lot of promise there, Anisha. We've seen that in the victories, the recent two victories that Sri Lanka has received, whether it's the T20I victory against India or it's the ODI, the final ODI victory against Pakistan as well. She's looked in good form, Harshita Madhvi, shown a lot of promise with the bat, and probably she would be the other player who would have a lot of hope pinned on her when it comes to today's game.
Most certainly, and as a top order batter, she is expected to play that role of responsibility of making sure that it's not just Chamari Atapattu who has to shoulder the bulk of the workload in terms of making sure that the team gets a competitive total. Ashita Madhavi, we saw her doing all right in the T20I leg of this tour in patches. In the third T20I, she had a formidable partnership with Chamari Atapattu, which led to her being able to play with the kind of freedom or just not be in a rush and was able to get to that 80 run final score, Chamari Atapattu, that is. So she needs to be that key cog in Sri Lanka's wheel around whom small partnerships can be built. Even if she gets off slow, which is often the case with most of the Sri Lanka batters, say for Chamari Atapattu, I think that will hold Sri Lanka in good stead, given the Indian bowling attack can be somewhat unpredictable, not so much as their batting lineup, but even then they have good bowlers in their ranks to pose immense threat. So they have to be wary. Somebody like a Nilakshi De Silva, as Thirush mentioned, and Harshita Madhavi up top. Kavisha Zilhari is starting to come on her own as a batter now. So to make sure that the owner's responsibility doesn't fall entirely on the skipper, Harshita Madhavi, being a top order batter, has to play a crucial role in making sure the outcome of the series goes in Sri Lanka's favor. And for that to happen, I think she needs to give her some time and not be under scoreboard pressure of any kind, or be under scoring at a huge rate sort of a pressure either, because that will just completely backfire, in my opinion, going by how Harshita Madhavi is geared to playing her natural game. So she needs to give her some time, even if they do not get up to a flying start in the power play or some such. She needs to make sure that she is around for the likes of Jamari Atupattu and Nilakshi Bisilva, Kavisha Dilhari to be able to play the cameos that they potentially can. So somebody needs to drop anchor, and beyond Chamari Atapattu, I think Harshita Madhavi is the best person to play that role.
Maybe, and of course, as you said, that there wouldn't be any scoreboard pressure as they are given the target. So that would be something that Sri Lanka would be thinking about. That let's not chase it. Maybe bat first, try to give the best through the batting, and then go on to defend the total as their bowlers have been in a good form. But speaking of India's bowling unit, it's again a little bit of a new start there, Thirush. We know that Julian Goswami, who's served Indian cricket for so long, she's not part of the series. There's uncertainty over when how she'll continue, she'll not continue. You don't have Mithali Raj in the side. The team starts new. It's the start of the new championship cycle for them. But speaking of India's bowling unit and India's team selection, the team is shaping up in a different way now because two of the biggest names who we have relied upon a lot when it comes to performing for the Indian side and winning matches for the side. But now you look at those youngsters who've been trying to make their statement, who've been trying to announce themselves at the big stage. And if we have to give you the news from the middle, is that Harleen Deol, of course, has made it to the playing 11. Do you think that's a right move coming in from India? There's probably S. Meghna was also there, something going on around that as well, because we saw that S. Meghna has made the most of all the opportunities she has received. Competitions as well, did certainly well in the women's T20 challenge there. In the New Zealand tour ahead of the World Cup, we saw her play those good knocks, of course, coming up the order. But now Harleen Deol gives you a depth in your batting unit. Also, not a bad bowling option there, for India.
Certainly, India is going through a transition phase with Mithali Dee not being part of the squad and also Jilandi because they have been playing a very pivotal role in shaping up the Indian team. Because whenever there's a time when India has been in a very volatile situation, we've always looked back to them and they've come up with some brilliant performance. So today, when India is heading into an ODI, first time into an ODI, we do not have the players they can look up to. So it's going to be a new transition. A lot of responsibility I've already mentioned in the past. Like a lot of responsibility goes into the youngsters to see how they're able to take up the responsibility and shape up. And and talking about the India's bowling, a lot of players have come very well in this series, especially in the T20 series. We saw Radha Yadav come ahead of Rajeshwari Gaikwad in the playing 11. In fact, they went with a lone spinner. Generally, we witnessed Rajeshwari will be the first pick for Harmanpreet Kaur, but this time we witnessed Radha Yadav coming in place of Rajeshwari. And when the responsibility was given to her, she took it up really well and she played some brilliant. We did see some brilliant bowling display from her. That's exactly what you'd want to see when youngsters are given that opportunity. And rightly mentioned, when we have Arlene come in, we were talking about Harlin's inclusion and exclusion in the T20 tournament where she was not part of the squad because we were looking at a leg spinner come in place because it was pretty evident that Harman was not keen in playing Poonam Yadav. A leg spinning option is very important, just not in the T20 format, but any format for that matter. You need a leg spinner and a variety in their bowling. And Harleen Deol could be the go-to player because she is just not a good batter or a bowler, but she's also an all-round cricketer. She'll be able to give you those stability to the batting, also those few overs, and no doubt an exceptional fielder. That plays a very, very key role in determining how India is going to decide their playing 11, just not in this tournament, but heading into the whole ICC championship tournaments, which is going to come in the future.
Yeah, so now let's just have a look at the playing 11 to see how the teams are shaping up ahead of this first ODI. For India, we see there, of course, Harleen Deol coming in, Shafali Verma, Smriti Mandhana at the top, Harmanpreet Kaur, the skipper. There would be a question there, what could be an ideal batting order for her now that Mithali Raj is not a part of the squad. Yasika Bhatia has been termed as a wicketkeeper, so we'll see her take those duties from Richa Ghosh, Deepti Sharma, Pooja Vastrakar, pace there with Renuka, Meghna, and a spin option with Rajeshwari. Of course, for Sri Lanka, Hasini Pereira top at the top of the order. The team would want her experience there. Kavisha Dilhari has been in a good form. Oshadi Ranasinghe, Inoka Ranavira, both of them did well for Sri Lanka in the T20I series, and that's what Sri Lanka will hope, that they continue their good form if Sri Lanka have to come in there and win this first ODI and get that first win in their cabinet. But then continuing the talks of India's bowling unit now there. Of course, we know that there's going to be a lot of responsibility on the Indian pacers there now that Sulan Goswami is not the part of the setup. But of course, when it comes to the young side of young bowling, pace bowling of India, Meghna Singh, Renuka Singh Thakur, today they would want to step up and make a statement for themselves, Anisha, because we've seen Julian take the responsibility of the team on most occasions. And after the World Cup, it's the first time India is playing the game. So it's an opportunity for them to go there, present themselves, dominate the proceedings, and make a strong statement.
Yes, and that has to happen in the form of wickets. That's the only way I think this Indian side will be able to make the emphatic statement that we want them to make, which wasn't quite the thing that happened in the T20I leg, because the T20I leg of the tour, I think, left us with more questions than answers. There wasn't much of a certainty around what the playing 11 for the Commonwealth Games is going to look like. That came through the way, through in the form of the results of their performance. So I think this is a good opportunity for the likes of Renuka Singh and Meghna Singh, especially, to make sure that they are seen as long-term prospects who can shoulder a white ball workload across both formats. It's going to be a bit taxing on somebody like Renuka Singh, because she played the T20Is. Meghna Singh did not get a game, but here she is playing her first game of the tour, so to speak. So she comes in fresh, probably will be that strike bowler that India will be banking on. Harmanpreet will be relying on to get the breakthroughs and also contain the Sri Lanka batters. So I am looking forward to how this three-pronged pace attack that they've gone ahead with Pooja Vastakar being the pace bowling all-rounder, who's been in exceptional form in the recent past. But again, with Pooja Vastakar, India need to be wary of the fact that she has been susceptible to injuries historically, and they need to literally bubble wrap her going into the Commonwealth Games, because there's no better all-rounder or no bigger all-rounder that their chances of a podium finish at the Commonwealth Games will be relying on. So Pooja Vastakar is another key cog in this field, and rounded out by how the spinners perform. Here we have Rajeshwari Gaikwad coming in. She was left out of the last game, last T20I match. That will play a key role, and as Thirush rightly mentioned, India will look to get some overs out of leg spinner Harleen Deol, because it looks like Poonam Yadav doesn't continue to inspire any confidence in the think tank or the captain. So she continues to be benched on this tour, which is unusual, but not quite unexpected for the senior pro, because she has not been in the best of form heading into this series. But it looks like her performance in the nets has also not done much to bolster her case for a selection in the ODI leg of the tour at the very least. So looking forward to how the Pacers in Sri Lanka set the tone, and for the spinners to then play second fiddle and hope to restrict Sri Lanka to as low a score as possible.
Unusual but not unexpected when it comes to Poonam Yadav's place in the team, rightly mentioned, because she's been struggling there a little bit with her economy there, but Rajeshwari Gaikwad with all the experience. But India's spin there looks fine with, you have options in Harmanpreet Kaur, you have Deepti Sharma, you have Rajeshwari Gaikwad also, and as Thirush put that forward for us with an option of Harleen Deol as India now possesses it. But talking of wicket keeping, there were a lot of talks going around. You have three wicket keepers in the setup. You have Yastika Bhatia, Tanya Bhatia, and then Richa Ghosh. But today we'll once again see Yastika Bhatia keep wickets for Team India. Do you think, Thirush, that she is going to be the long-term priority or option for Team India behind the stumps in the presence of these three options? Probably Richa Ghosh there gives a tough competition. We've known that Richa Ghosh has improved on her keeping since the last 1 or 2 years. So, but Yastika Bhatia has also shown a lot of promise, has came in out there and also mentioned that she would love to contribute in many ways for Team India. And now that she's getting an opportunity to be behind the stumps, she's done a good job, and we would hope that she continues to do so. You look at her as the full-time and the final option for Team India to keep wickets?
Well, when we talk about Yastika and Richa, they both are in the playing 11 because of the batting predominantly, and keeping proficiency comes right after that. So, and we were recently did see, in spite of having Tanya in the squad, they still went with Richa Ghosh in the World Cup. So they probably the management is trying to work out the combination and see who fits in right. And with Yastika having a very good ODI World Cup, so you'd want to ensure that you give a lot of opportunities for Yastika. But on the contrast, you also know the kind of destructive batting that Richa can display, because she comes at number 5, and she was coming at number 6. But now with Harman coming up a little up the order, maybe she might come at number 5. So the kind of destructive batting with her and Pooja Vastrakar batting in tandem could be the kind of finish that India would want. And I think it feels more likely, so that it feels like a wise choice to have both of them play in the playing 11. And maybe you'd want to see who keeps better and give them an equal number of opportunity. Probably today Yastika might keep, the next game you might want to see Richa keep, because we've seen a lot of keeping from Richa. She has done considerably a decent job. Definitely no doubt about there's a lot of scope of improvement, but she's a youngster, and still a lot of long way to go. She's going to pick up from whatever she has left. So no doubt they both are in good contention, but it all depends on how they are going to able to handle the responsibility that is thrown to them today, because today we are going to witness a completely new dimension, because they do not have the likes of Mithali Deep, and a lot of responsibility goes into, because you do not have a senior partner helping you or guiding you, because most times we did witness the Mithali Deep playing the anchor role, trying to help the youngsters, to take the game forward. But today, when you do not have them, a lot goes into how they are able to, take irrespective of the situations that are thrown at them, they have to step up and play very well. So I'm very excited to see how they both are going to shape up, just not in this tour, but also in the tours that are coming ahead.
We are all excited to see how the newly shaped Indian team is going to take the charge of the field today. We are just few minutes away from the action to start, and it's time to take predictions from our experts. So I'll take two different predictions from both the experts, so as to we have things to discuss when we meet for the mid-show there. So Annesha, coming to you first, who is going to be the pick of the bowlers for India today?
Fresh off the bench is Meghna Singh. So I would love for her to get some movement and with her variations. This is a pitch that is going to favor spinners, make no mistake. But the pacers will have to make sure that they rely on their variations, their change-ups, and how carefully they are able to fox the batters, because it is going to turn. There's barely any grass on this pitch, as reported by the broadcasters there. So Meghna Singh, I'm looking forward to how she goes about her business. She had some phenomenal tours, especially the one in Australia, where she literally swung Australia out of the game in several bits. But in the absence of Julian Goswami, how is she going to lend herself to the bowling partnership with Pooja Vastrakar and the other fellow pacer she has in the ranks in Renuka Singh? Aside from that, Rajeshwari Gaikwad's form is going to be also crucial, because we've seen her have stop-start performances in the T20I leg. We do not quite know what led to her being called for just one over in the first T20I. So was she carrying a bit of a niggle? Her fitness also comes into focus in this game, and hopefully she'll bowl her full allotment of overs. And Harleen Deol, again, we have been sort of on this show at the very least, we've been rooting for the top and middle order batters to get some bowling under their belt as well, in the form of Jemima Rodrigues. We've seen Shefali Verma roll her arm over in the T20I leg, but maybe there is an opportunity for Harleen Deol to bowl at least 3 to 4 overs, and that could also help the team management suss out if she's picked in the T20I squad. Could she also add that bowling dimension as well in the form of a leg spin? So that's another bowl I'm looking forward to watch in the series overall.
Okay, then that's what the bowling unit of India looks like, and Meghna Singh is the pick of the bowler for Annesha. But if you have to speak about the first innings score, Thirush, I've come to you with that. What is India chasing?
Certainly, they would want to chase anything less than 200, because they have a very good bowling unit. You do not want to chase a lot, especially a new format. You want to have start with a win under your belt, and that's exactly what Harman would want to do at this point. certainly it's an ICC championship points. So there's going to be a lot of thinking in terms of trying to get a 3-0 series out here. You want to pile up as many points as possible, because every single game matters a lot. You do not want to give any kind of a consolation win, which happened in the T20. So certainly that might go into Harman's mind. But if I have to pick the player, could be Rajeshwari Gaikwad, because a player who's coming into the playing 11 didn't get a lot of opportunities in the T20. So it is just because we've seen players have been in the circuit for a bit, but now when you're benched and then when you get back into the Indian team and you know a player who's sitting out, who's actually done well, so probably a lot is expected out of her. I want to see how she's able to handle the kind of pressure, because it's a new dimension that she's put in. So really excited to see how Rajeshwari Gaikwad would be able to handle the kind of responsibility. And also rightly mentioned, a lot depends on how the pacers would be doing, because Asian conditions are not very favorable generally for the fast bowlers. So a lot goes into the fast bowlers to have a decent economy and pick up some good wickets. So a lot depends on the kind of variation that they would look at in an Asian condition. So when you have a spin-friendly condition, Rajeshwari should definitely dominate the Sri Lankan unit. And on the contrast, we also have just not the one bowler, but all the 3 fast bowlers who are given an opportunity in the upcoming game. We'll have to see how they're able to handle the pressure when things are not very favorable for them.
So we have 2 names here, Meghna Singh, and then we have Rajeshwari Gaikwad as predicted by Thirush there. It's going to be an exciting contest there, because we know that every point is important. The match gets very important here. So we'll discuss how the action has unfolded in the first innings when we meet here at the mid-show. So until then, you stay tuned to Women's Cricket Zone for all the live updates on women's cricket.
अब सीख तो गए, अब तो जाने दो मुझे।
ठहर जाइए, कोई प्रॉब्लम हो गई तो कहाँ ढूंढेंगे आपको?
फैंटेसी अखाड़ा का 24/7 कस्टमर सर्विस है, आपकी प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करवा देंगे।
कल जाने देंगे।
फैंटेसी स्पोर्ट्स का असली अखाड़ा।
इस गेम में वित्तीय जोखिम के तत्व हैं और इसकी लत लग सकती है। कृपया जिम्मेदारी से और अपने जोखिम पर खेलें।